Today's topic, Windows Server 2019 storage options. So didn't want to focus on everything in a vacuum, so just storage options in the new Windows Server 2019. So on today's agenda, we'll discuss what's about storage migration service, how can it be useful for us and what's it all about. Then we'll jump to the storage replica that is finally on the standard edition in Windows Server 2019. We'll talk a bit about storage space's direct nested resiliency, what's new and how you can achieve fault tolerance with just 2 nodes. And finally, talk about deduplication, and I hope I'll show you how duplication works in real life in our testing lab. And finally, you'll have some time for questions and answer. So let's move on. So probably one of the most awesome things that Windows Server 2019 brought us is storage migration service. So now that there are more and more Windows Server editions, and it's the high time you may ask, well, how to migrate my files to the new Windows servers, new editions, or to migrate the whole server configurations and server identities themselves. So that's exactly what Windows Server Storage Migration Service is here for. So with it, you can basically move files, file shares, and security configurations from old Windows Server, for example, 2003 hardware to the brand new servers with Windows Server 2019. This can be also just as on-premises hardware servers, also as Azure instances. So basically, storage migration service allows you inventory multiple servers and their data, transfer files, and so on, so that users and apps won't need to make any changes or anything to access their existing data. So basically all the IPs, all the system configurations along with server names are transferred to the new servers. So regarding the support for the source servers for the migration starts from Windows Server 2003 and further on till 2019 apparently. Talking about what it needs, well, basically if you're migrating just a single server from, let's say, Windows Server 2012 R2 to Windows Server 2019, you can use this Windows Server 2019 as an orchestrator. In case you will be managing the migration of multiple server instances, you will need the additional server with the Windows Server 2019 installed on it to manage all the process. Also, when it comes to migration time, it will be much faster when you're migrating to Server 2019. If you're migrating from Windows Server 2003 and to 2016, that process will take slightly more time. So basically, these are a really useful feature. So once you decide to change your hardware or migrate your old servers to the Azure, well, Microsoft is pushing Azure everywhere, so no wonder it's on the scheme. That's the tool you will need. It's available in the Windows Server 2019 Essentials and since Essentials and up to Standard and Data Center editions. So the process for the configuration is quite simple. All you basically need is Windows Admin Center installed either on the server as a gateway or on Windows 10 laptop or PC. The process is quite simple, so I'm not gonna describe it all in the webinar since there are pretty much guides and articles already about this. But the feature really works and is great for migrating your outdated hardware and Windows Server instances to the new hardware or Azure and along with Windows Server new editions. So talking about the migration and storage, the news about the storage replica are here. So I'm pretty much sure we're all good to know the storage replica. It's the Windows Server technology It allows us to replicate our volumes between the servers or clusters for disaster recovery. So this, you are probably quite familiar with that. So it can be the synchronous or asynchronous replication. It allows creating the stretch failover cluster that spans two sides, well, with all nodes staying in sync. So what's about the storage replica in Windows Server 2019? Well, first of all, it's on the standard edition. And it's great since till that time you had to get Data Center Edition to get this useful feature. However, a part of that storage replica just been presented. Microsoft guys also made some improvements for the log tracks, how the logs are tracked and replicated. So this basically improves the replication throughput and latency, but this improvement is especially important for all-flash storage arrays, and it works much faster when you're creating the storage replica between Windows Server 2019 hosts. In case you're using another Windows server, that will be not that fast. Plus, well, while everything seems to be great, so storage replica is on the standard edition finally, it wouldn't be Microsoft if they didn't put some strict limitations. So storage replica in Windows Server Standard Edition can replicate only one volume with the total size of up to 2 TB. And of course, it can replicate to only a single partner as standard instead of the unlimited number. So that's basically all that Microsoft allows us to do with storage replica in Windows Server 2019 Standard Edition. Pretty much good. Yes, it allows you to replicate your volumes, configure asynchronous or synchronous replication, configure your disaster recovery, replicate the sites between S to D, between two storage spaces, direct clusters, but it's only 2 TB and it's only a single volume. Personally, in my opinion, it's perfectly good for testing, but for live environments, I'm not sure, maybe someone will find 2 TB of sites and a single volume pretty much useful for it. Still, thank you Microsoft for bringing storage replica to standard edition. And since we touched the topic of storage spaces direct, the major improvement and the major new feature that Microsoft introduced in Windows Server 2019 is nested resiliency for a 2-node S2D cluster. So I'm pretty much sure everyone knows that Microsoft is great at 4 nodes. It can be on 3 nodes, but no 2-node configurations for high available storage till now. So what it basically gives us, so Microsoft introduced nested resiliency, well, apparently inspired by RAID 5+1 configuration, but it works in 2 modes. So first of all, we have the nested two-way mirror, which basically allows us to create the mirror on the local server storage plus the mirror between the participating hosts. The pros and cons. So pros, definitely it's a good performance, it's a great performance, and the resiliency where you can withstand 2 failures, meaning 1 drive plus a single node failure, with keeping all your data still available. The only thing about it is that the storage capacity efficiency is reduced up to 25% since it's basically the 4-way mirror on 2 nodes. So in case you're looking to increase the storage capacity while still having the desired resiliency, the storage spaces direct allow us to configure nested mirror accelerated parity. So it was previously already in the Windows Server 2016 mirrored accelerated parity, but now it's nested, meaning basically the same approach that took for two-way mirror. As you can see on the diagram, 2 servers, they have the replication between the mirror between the both servers. They have the mirror between the on the local storage. Let's call it the cache tier plus the parity as another tier where the data is written finally. So basically how this works, all the write requests are first getting to the mirror, two-way mirror tier, and after that they gradually get written to the underlying parity tier. So basically they have different configurations for that. You can use the 10% two-way mirror tier or 20 or 30%, and the other capacity you can use for parity. So how the process of flushing data from the two-way mirror tier to the parity goes. Once it gets all its size full with data, it gets then flushed to the parity, where the checksums are calculated, the parity codes are calculated, and finally written to the underlying storage. So as far as we all can see, this process is still good, but it lacks the performance that the nested two-way mirror gives us, since there is some time needed and some I/O cycles to calculate the parity and write it from the two-way mirror to the parity tier. So the best use cases probably would be in case you're having the hybrid storage in your servers, meaning SSDs plus HDDs, to use the SSDs, for example, as the two-way mirror tier, which will be serving both write and reads, thus boosting the performance, and then flushing all the data to the parity, which are HDDs. Now, regarding the capacity, it is approximately 40% of the storage capacity, larger than with nested two-way mirror, but it also depends on the number of drives you have in your server. So with the minimum of 4 drives is the requirement for the S2D. It hasn't changed since that. And also it depends on the percentage you're using for two-way mirror. So it's best to calculate the amount of data you will be using as hot data, and to base the capacity of the two-way mirror tier on that data, and then gradually flash it to the parity tier. Now, this is really good, and Microsoft finally gave us the 2-node S2D cluster configuration that is capable of withstanding a single node plus a single drive in the partner node failures. So it's up to you to consider which approach is better, either the nested two-way mirror or the nested mirror accelerated parity. The major difference is the storage capacity and the performance. So two-way mirror lacks the storage capacity, but it pretty much shines when it comes to performance. With the mirror accelerated parity, the storage capacity is increased, yes, up to 40%, again depending on the amount of drives per server, but it lacks the performance of the two-way mirror, of the nested two-way mirror. Again, the only thing that is not so glad about it, it's that it's still available only in the data center edition. So it's again up for you to decide. But yeah, the fact is here that S2D is now in 2 nodes with data center edition, with 2 options for you to consider to ensure your high availability for your data. And yes, the nested mirror accelerated parity works on ReFS, and Microsoft is highly pushing their resilient file system everywhere, and it really works, especially with deduplication, which basically is our next slide. And so what Microsoft brought us on the Windows Server 2019, it's data deduplication now on ReFS file system. So for example, with deduplication on ReFS, you can save up to 95% you can basically increase your storage efficiency up to 95% with a resilient file system. Well, at least that's according to Microsoft. The configuration is pretty much simple. You can either do it in the Server Manager or in the Windows Admin Center. And let's just not to talk about it. Let me show you in my demo lab already configured. So what I've done here, what I have prepared, it's the single server with several volumes created. All of them are ReFS. Those are just simple volumes on storage spaces, no mirror, no parity, just simple as that. So basically no resiliency on their level, on the level of storage spaces. So to show how efficient the deduplication on ReFS can be, I have created several pools, gathered them into disks, and consequently in the volumes. So what I'm just wanted to show you is how good data deduplication can be on different data. So as you can see here, we have some different volumes. ReFS volume 1, we have just 2 ISOs copied, just the same ISOs with Windows Server 2016 data center evaluation. And that would be just the perfect scenario for deduplication, just to test how it works. And I'm also going to show you how it will behave itself when we'll have just a bit more of data, different ISOs, a bit more storage, how long it will take, and what ratio it will give us. And finally, I've also deployed several VMs, just some testing VMs. Some of them are running, some of them are currently off, but they're all located on a different volume just to simulate slightly the possible VDI workload with different VMs running on that storage. So regarding the configuration, here we have our volumes, and let's start with ReFS volume 1. Let's configure data deduplication. It will be just a general purpose file server. We proceed to the deduplication settings. I'm just going to use one schedule here. So the time on my clock is 11:20. So I'm just going to set it to 11:22 till I finish with this schedule. Now they have also background optimization, which basically means that the deduplication processes will be running constantly in the background mode and taking as low CPU resources as is possible without significant impact on the system performance. However, with these two options, we have to be careful since they will consume the CPU, the compute power significantly. That also depends on the volumes and on the amount you're planning to use the duplication for. And that's why Microsoft recommends to use them outside to schedule the duplication outside the production or even backup hours. So we currently see that duplication is already enabled for this ReFS volume. And while it's all simply done from the server manager, we can always use the good old PowerShell just to check everything. Okay, so we can see that the duplication process is running, and we should shortly receive our results. From previous testing, the deduplication on the ReFS volume, which currently has 2 ISOs, both of them 6 GB, so 12 GB in total. It took me plus minus 1 minute. So approximately, yeah, like that, we can see that the progress is going on. Let me just show you one more time. Here's our ReFS volume. So yeah, in total almost 14 GB used. So not the great amount of storage used, yes, but just for testing, just to see if it really works, if it dedupes as should for 50%. I hope this test will be enough. And let's give it a try one more time. 50% completed. So you can also configure the schedule and launch the duplication jobs with PowerShell. And regarding the Windows Admin Center for managing deduplication, I honestly didn't found the option to enable deduplication in Windows Admin Center for the already existing ReFS volumes. So while it gives the ability to perfectly schedule deduplication during the volume creation in the Windows Admin Center after it has been created on a standalone node, you can do it either with PowerShell or with the server manager. Unless that is the S2D cluster already, or for example the failover cluster, you can then connect the Windows Admin Center for the hyperconverged cluster and configure the duplication for already existing volumes there. Yeah, with no issues, but for the single host, the duplication can be configured either with PowerShell or with the server manager. And it should be finished. So it showed me that it saved 7.42 GB on the volume E, which is our first testing volume with 2 ISOs. So pretty much good. The duplication works just as it should. So the duplication rate was 51%, even 1% extra. So I think those are some great results for this volume. Now let's make it a bit harder for our deduplication tests. We'll go to the volume sign with G letter, and here we have just multiple ISOs with a total capacity consumption of 20, approximately 23 GBs. So let's move on. Just going to do it the same way for the general purpose file server. Let's do it 11, 28. And let's change it to 0 days to catch all the files we need. Okay, let's check duplication status. Okay, so it's currently pending for our second volume. Also, guys, just thinking that while we have the typically questions and answer session coming after all the demonstration, so while the duplication process takes some time, I just think that if you have any questions, you may just also ask them now while we are waiting for our deduplication results. Okay, yeah, just the first question. So does storage migration work across domains? Just wanted to clarify if you're meaning the between different domains. Okay, so the servers should be joined within a single domain. As far as I know, and as far as I read the Microsoft documentation, that should be a part of a single domain. Also, another question. So ReFS is required for data deduplication. What if running NTFS? Yes, deduplication works on TFS also, but well, what's all about why I'm telling about this? Because previously there was no deduplication allowed for ReFS based volumes. So the deduplication on NTFS, it's the good old Windows. Deduplication works pretty much just the same way. But now with deduplication enabled on ReFS, we've got something more, not only just resiliency from the ReFS as a file system, but we can also make some optimization to the storage efficiency. So definitely it's taking a bit longer time. And another question from Christian, allow for Hyper-V host volumes. Do you mean the deduplication for ReFS? Yes, it's only the deduplication on ReFS works only on the volumes. So yeah, these are Hyper-V volumes. And another question from Farid Saritom. I think that's for SolarWinds. I don't know if you're meaning the StarWind or actually the SolarWind. I think that's the better question for our sales team. Okay, yeah, for just in the couple of questions for the CPU utilization. And let me get back the tube job. 100% actually. Okay, so it's getting lower now, and I'll keep it open when I'll start the deduplication for the volume holding the VM's storage. Also, another question from Christian, if it's allowed for use with VM. Well, yeah, basically any ReFS volume you can enable deduplication. Okay, so in this case, we saved 9.3 GB. Let's me update Server Manager. So the deduplication rate is 38%. Again, this ReFS test volume 2 has 23 GB used, all with different ISOs in it. All ISOs for Windows Server versions, some CentOS ISOs, Windows 10 as far as I remember, and some other ISOs I've downloaded. So pretty much, yep, that's the lower result, but still I think it's quite good. And finally, once again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 VMs in our environment. They all are located on the ReFS VDI volume. all the test disks for the VMs are here. So let's see how the deduplication on ReFS will behave itself on the, let's say, the simulation of the virtual desktop infrastructure environment. We'll choose the virtual desktop infrastructure server here. Change files to 0. And let's do it 1138. Okay, all set, all good. So the deduplication jobs are configured for all our volumes, and let's just see what it can finally do. So the basic principles of deduplication remain the same for any duplication, be it ReFS or NTFS. So the more exact the same chunks you have, the better the duplication ratio is. And definitely for the database systems where most of the data is unique, the duplication ratio will be worse. So that's pretty much the expected scenario for the duplication. Yeah guys, thanks for that hint. Get the dup job. Wait, we'll do it right now. And still not that. Okay. Just to see that it started. Okay, so it's on 39%. Let's take a look at the CPU utilization. Another question from Rosario. Would we use the ReFS for cluster shared volumes or stick to NTFS? So actually there are no restrictions for using ReFS for the cluster shared volumes. And in case we're talking about StarWind, we already have our customers using the ReFS for the cluster shared volumes. But as from our experience for the ReFS volumes, we don't know the exact reason yet, and it's not related to StarWind. I'm currently talking about the simple ReFS deployments without StarWind as HA. So just ReFS while we were testing, and we get some reports that for some reason they just simply may get raw. So how often it happens and what are the reasons for that, I'm not yet sure. So don't want to misguide you guys, but typically I would advise you to stick with NTFS just as a cluster shared volumes. Again, on the other hand, there are just some, let's say, single cases that are not the rest majority and not something that should be reported as an alarm for Microsoft. On top of that, so ReFS is a really good, resilient file system from Microsoft, but there are such cases, so it's actually up for you to decide. Okay, so the utilization has been dropped. The CPU has been finished. And we see that for our final F drive, there was some 7.8 GB spared. And yes, for our ReFS, actually the simulation of the VDI, the deduplication rate shows as 60% with 7.8 GB saved. Regarding the CPU usage, you could have seen that was significantly higher when the duplication was running, but never topped off the 60% of the CPU utilization. However, during the real production time, when everything is running, the duplication will certainly influence the overall system performance. So basically, that's pretty much for our demo. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and hope you find something useful for you in this webinar. Also, if you have any questions, we still have just several minutes, so you can ask them now. So I think that would be it for today. We will also share the record on our website, on the StarWind website. And so in case you guys will want to reload this video, you're always welcome. Yeah, I think that the session will be available tomorrow on the StarWind website, or maybe the latest on Monday, I think so. So you can always find it in our video sections. So, okay, everyone, thanks for joining. Yeah, I see that there was one more question regarding the ReFS permissions, but I think I'm gonna cover it in the next demo, since I'm just telling that I'm running out of time. So again, thank you everyone for coming. It was my pleasure, and hope to see you on our next webinars. Thank you everyone, and have a good day.